we've touched on this a bit, but what are some SEO considerations that you should take into account before starting your redesign?
Every aspect of SEO.
Yeah.
Yeah. This goes back to when I first stated like the analytics. You got to look at the analytics before you even start hitting up the redesign, unless it's like a 1999 website that you're like, oh, this needs a facelift. But you need to know what kind of things where pages are ranking. So when I say something's working, pages are ranking, right? So we're going to try to do the best that we can not to wreck that. So you need to absolutely look at how the SEO is utilized within those pages, images, anything and everything on that page. And then look at what, this kind of goes back to the back-end aspect. Is there things that are getting you docked on page speed scores that might not have 5 years ago, but now, Google doesn't like that as much. So there's just many things that you got to look at besides just the visual aspect. Before doing that, and a lot of times those will tell you what that you need to get the redesign. And it's all SEO. A lot of it's SEO related.
Analytics will also tell you what's not working.
Yep.
You could have pages on your site that virtually get no traffic to it. So now you're down to do we even need those pages anymore? Are they worthless information that no one cares about? Clean up the site a little bit. Then take into consideration restructuring your what it is you do. So if you have a single page called services, and maybe get some traffic to it, but maybe it's not a lot of traffic, you're probably better off building out each one of those individual services into its own page.
Yeah.
Expanding that site further, because if you find that your SEO isn't working very well, when you redesign is the time to tackle that.
Yeah.
Right. Build out that page. Most likely you're going to end up, if the SEO is not working, you're going to end up building out that site larger, more pages, expanding upon your services or your service areas.
Yep.
One thing that we run into this sometimes on redesigns, it's the awkward content, or I shouldn't say awkward. It's the hidden deep content that somehow has really good rank. Maybe it's an old blog that was written years ago you forgot about, but we have a lot of customers. We've written tens of thousands of blogs over the years, where Google, if you search for certain things in Google, our customers are the auto answer snippet, right? And it's a blog that if you weren't looking at analytics and you're doing a redesign, you'd be like, man, that's 7 years old.
Yeah.
I can delete that blog, right?
Yeah.
But reality is it's the number one traffic generator to their site. Yeah, it's an old blog. Maybe you just need to rewrite the blog, update it with whatever's out of date, right?
Yeah.
Because you're getting so much so much traffic to it. Those are things that if you're not paying attention to your analytics before you do your redesign, you'd probably just drop it.
Yep.
Without even knowing what you're doing.
Yep. And that kind of, that goes back to if you're doing a redesign, you're doing it properly. Say you have a blog article like that. Sometimes we'll run into an instance where maybe it might be easier to change up the URL structure. You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Sure, you can add redirects and stuff like that, but it's not the best practice. And then you change that URL or slug, whatever you want to call it. That's going to hurt you.
Another thing we could take into consideration before redesigning, this is when our SEO team is doing a lot of our pre-research, is finding those inbound links from third-party websites, because people will find the most awkward stuff to link to. We just did this on a client site. We switched over last week where they had a ton of inbound links to some random pictures. I don't know if people on the internet couldn't find pictures of a guy stacking a retaining wall brick or what it is, but people would take this picture from their article and put it on their website, right? But they would link to it, right? So one of the top inbound links to this site for SEO value was other people's websites about landscaping, using his picture. So it was just the weird stuff like that. And you don't want to, if we would have not paid attention to that, it was kind of an outdated picture, we probably would have dropped it.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think we really used it too much anywhere in the site, maybe in the original blog that it was in, but we made sure that image stayed in the exact location. So all those links still worked. So that's just, I don't know if it would have affected his SEO too much over time. You could have, I mean, I didn't, some of those could have been pretty good authority pages linking back, but
Well, yeah, I'm sure there's a factor, but I mean, also from the best practice, don't ever use
but just best
from another website.
Well, the best practice when you're switching is to make sure the things that are working continue to work.
Yeah, I mean, how many times people like switched CMS during redesign? So now their URL structure is just totally different.
Mm-hmm.
Now Google will figure that out eventually, usually, for your main pages at least.
Yeah.
But what happens on those inbound links you had coming to the other page? If you don't redirect that over to the new one,
That's just lost.
those are just lost.
404.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.